Welcome to Master Networks University and our advanced training module called M.E.L.T. Away Stress, M.E.L.T., Melt Away Stress. And I think you will enjoy today's program. Stress is what we deal with in the world of entrepreneurship, and probably in our modern age, so many people talk about dealing with and handling stress. And so it's not an uncommon thing to talk about. And so I want to talk about that, but I want to do it in the context of us as entrepreneurs. The first thing is that we have a mindset as entrepreneurs. The greatest of us are learning-based. That's why you're on this call today. It's why you're in Master Networks. It's why you attend education. It's why you try and improve your skills. You're learning-based. You're visionary in that you have a place you see you want to go, right? Visionaries are those who can see as possible that which is not now true. In other words, they're creative. They're creating new things. They're creating a business. They're creating a bigger business than it is now. They're serving people that they don't serve now. They are visionaries. They are causing the future. They're assertive in that they know what they want and they ask for it and they expect to receive it. They expect to be treated with respect. They have a right to ask. They have a right to express their own opinion. They have a right to say no or yes. They're assertive, and these are skills we build. We can always become more assertive, and they're courageous in that they're willing to take on things that make them currently uncomfortable, right? They're willing to do that which is currently uncomfortable. That's how we build new skills. We do something, we don't do it very well. I always have said that the way to adept doing things well, the way to adept is through inept. The only way you can get good at something is to first do it poorly. And I don't care what the skill is, playing golf, making a speech, making a sales presentation, learning new software. The first step is one of ineptness, and then you get through that, and now you have a certain level of confidence, and then you build your confidence, and then you get very competent and confident. But it's courage that allows us to go through that process. And then we are disciplined and motivated. That means we show up when we need to show up. When we set a goal, we do it. We do what we say we'll do. That's discipline. And motivated means we know why we're doing it. We know what our reasons is. We know that we want to achieve autonomy and mastery and get better at something and be of service, have a purpose in what we do. And then the final thing I've found about entrepreneurs is they're tough-minded and they're resilient. In other words, they can take down times. They can take tough times. They can take it when things go wrong. They can take it when people criticize them. They don't cave in. They don't waffle. They don't certainly play victim or be weak. They build their mental toughness, not in a harsh way, because it can be a very loving, caring way, but they know underneath it all that they're tough and they're resilient. In other words, they get up one more time than they're knocked down. So we know these things are all part of the attitude that we're working on. Entrepreneurs don't just have these 6 things true of them. They build them. They build them over time. Now, entrepreneurs will be stressed, and stress management is one of the skills that we build. There will always be more to do than we'll have time to do. That's how entrepreneurship works. We always can think of things that could be done more or better that aren't currently being done at that level. So that can cause stress. The other thing is the buck stops here. We own it. We're the owner. We're the ultimate decision maker. We can't hand this off up to somebody else and blame them. We're the ones that own it. We're on the line for it. That can be stressful. Things can go wrong. Plans always don't go as planned. They go astray. Deals fall through. Things we expected to happen don't happen. We get disappointed. And somebody once said in sales and business, you get a lot of appointments and you get a lot of disappointments. And that's true. And the question is, how do we build up our ability to take on those difficult things? And then there's always the pressure of money. Money often is the biggest stressor that there is. And in business, that's true. We have our expenses, we have our obligations, we payroll, we have to pay rent. There are financial things that we must deliver on, and we always could be afraid of it falling apart or bankruptcy. And risk, of course, the money risk. We've probably invested not only our own time, but maybe some of our own savings. Maybe we've taken a second mortgage on our house, whatever it is, or borrowed money from relatives that we would be embarrassed not to pay back. The point is there's a risk. So all of this can be stressful. Now, I didn't mean this session to add to your stresses. That's not the purpose of it, but we have to be realistic about it. There are stressful things in being an entrepreneur. In fact, we probably are willing to take on more stress than average people. A lot of people work for others because they don't want the stress. Now, they may still get stressed out, but somebody else has to make the decision. Somebody else has their money at risk, and I have this hourly job and I'm getting paid, right? That's 90% of all people. So entrepreneurs are in a special class of courage and willingness to put it on the line, take the risk, and therefore deal with the stress. So this session on how to handle stress is really critical because there will be stress. Now, the first thing to remember in dealing with it is it's a mindset. Some things are stressful to some people, but not to others. I mean, if somebody said, Dave, would you get up and say a few words to us at a meeting? That's not stressful for me. I mean, that's in my wheelhouse. I do that all the time. I don't view that as stressful. Somebody else would freak out and go, oh, no, I can't do that. I'd embarrass myself. I'd die, Same thing, somebody else might say, look, isn't this curious, this spider over here? Look at this tarantula. Wouldn't that interesting? Well, some people would go, oh, yeah, because their mindset is, that's curious. I'm curious, and I've dealt with spiders before, and let it run on your hand, and that's again. Other people would just freak out and run away. Why? It's not that the spider has changed or the tarantula. It's the mindset. It's your awareness of it and how you relate to it. Now, the second thing is it's a skill. I've learned over time that there was a time when I was afraid of public speaking, and there was a time when I was self-conscious and I was nervous anytime I'd have to speak. So I had to build the skill, not just the skill of speaking, but the skill of overcoming my stress, my anxiety, my performance anxiety about doing that. And then it's a discipline, and a discipline just means it's a habit. It becomes a way I do it. And I'm going to give you later a few things I would recommend as disciplines or habits that will ease and reduce and handle stress. And once you make them a habitual part of your life, then stress can happen. And it won't bother you. I mean, other things that would stress out other people won't stress out you. So it's really important to understand that dealing with stress is critical if we want to be successful, healthy, and happy as an entrepreneur, a leader, and a person. I mean, we have to deal with it. And if we do, then we can be successful, we can be healthy, and we can be happy, even in doing things that are demanding and stressful. It also gives us the opportunity to give back to others, to be a role model, of handling difficult situations. Somebody once said to me, I always want to be the calmest person in the transaction. I love that self-statement. I always want to be the rock that other people can get security from. If you can develop that capacity, then people will want to be with you and they'll want to work with you. But you can also positively impact others by helping them deal with their stress by using the same methods and techniques we're going to talk about for you handling yours, so you can give back to others. And of course, it's also what leaders are. Leaders are people who take on demanding, stressful things and do it with confidence and with skill, and other people want to be around them and work with them. The final thing is that it gives you the tenacity and the staying power to make it through tough times, to not just survive, but to thrive through tough times, because there will be tough times. There will be tough economic times. There will be tough competitive conditions. There will be tough when you have to change the way you do business. You'll have to deal with difficult employees or customers. And if you have that tenacity, that tough-mindedness that gets you through that, and it doesn't stress you out, and it doesn't make you weak and vulnerable, then you will survive and you will thrive as a business person. So let's understand that stress is natural. It's a natural aspect of human life. Everyone deals with stress. It comes from confronting a threat. Anytime we face something that feels like it's threatening, it's either getting in the way of what we want, or it's threatening us in some physical way, or it's threatening us in some emotional way. Every time we confront a threat, the body goes into a stress reaction, and there's a natural, what's called a reflex. Now, a lot of people just call it the fight-flight reflex, that we either get aggressive and fight or we fly away, and that animals, either like lions, are aggressive and birds fly. They have a natural way of dealing with threatening situations. One is fight, one is flight, but there's another one that humans have called freeze, and some other animals do too, and that's where you stop and don't move, because historically in our evolution it was often best if we just stayed in place, and the other threat, the animal or whatever, couldn't see us because we didn't move. So we they only responded to motion. But here's the problem with us. We have these same reflexes, by the way. Something can happen, we can get angry. Something can happen, we get afraid and run away from it, avoid it. Or we can freeze. And freeze is a very stressful place to be, because the threat doesn't go away and we aren't taking an action. At least in fighting and flighting, we are acting, we're doing something, we're physically engaged. Freeze, we're locked. And the problem is, a lot of people get just locked in their life, and they stay a lot of time in that freeze, and freeze is not a comfortable place to be. It is maybe the most stressful of all, is to stay frozen. So you want to get by. Now there's a fourth choice. Sometimes it's appropriate to get angry. Sometimes it's appropriate to avoid something. Sometimes it is appropriate to just take a pause and freeze for a minute. But the fourth choice is to face it and flex. In other words, face the threat and then flex your reaction to be appropriate to solving it. So face and flex is your most productive way, typically in human situations, to deal with it. So understand that you're finding ways to effectively fight if it's necessary, flight if it's appropriate, and then face and flex in most cases, so that you can stay there in the arena and make it work. Now, understand that there's here's where stress comes from. It all begins with how we think. Our thoughts lead to our emotional responses, how we feel. We can feel afraid, mad, glad, sad. We have emotional responses to it. And then that typically leads to our action, fight, flight, freeze. So working on how we think about things is really important. I mean, I once had a guy say to me, in 100 years, it's all new people. What are you sweating about, Dave? In 100 years, it's all new people. Don't take it so seriously. Well, that was an interesting thought to have, but it did take pressure. And there was another thing where someone said, nothing can really go wrong that you can't handle. What a great self-talk. Dave, nothing can go wrong that you can't handle, you can't get through. I mean, it's not going to kill you. See, that's the interesting thing. Most things we're afraid of aren't really going to kill us. Now, if they are a threat to our life, then we have to take some action, of course. But most things aren't at that level, and yet we take them often to that level of direness. So we need to just back off, find a way to back off, and not have that feeling. And also, many people say, this too shall pass. And that's a good phrase, because it will. This too shall pass. Things get better. The weather changes, things get better. So we have those mental talk, but it begins with our choices. And then we have a choice. We can melt stress. And that's the formula that I want to talk about, the M.E.L.T. formula. There are really 4 effective ways to deal with stress in our lives. 1, meditate. That's the M. E, exercise. 3, laugh. Laughter is one of the greatest releases of stress that there is. And 4, train. Train ourselves to deal with stress. So M.E.L.T, meditate, exercise, laugh, and train. Let's take a look at each one. First, meditation is it's not a religious thing, although many religions do meditation. Zen Buddhists, meditation is one of their fundamental processes that they use to get wisdom and understanding and spiritual awareness. But it's not that. It is a human behavior. And it's a way that we learn to quiet the mind. We call it the monkey mind, that's jumping around, giving us things to worry about, jumping around, creating anxiety, getting all hyper and screamy. It's to center our focus on ourselves and what's important, to be at peace, and to be physically relaxed, to reduce any stress levels that are occurring in our body, because there's sort of a cycle that's self-reinforcing. We feel some stress, That makes us think stress. Then that causes greater feelings of stress, and this vicious cycle comes and we get all stressed out because it's a combination of our mind and our feelings and our physical responses. So there's a wonderful technique that's called the relaxation response. And you can even look that up on the internet, the relaxation response. And there's wonderful little guidances on how to do it. But it's a simple process anyone can learn for how to sit quietly in a quiet, undisturbed place in a comfortable way, to be aware of your breathing, to have nothing there that's a stimulant of any kind, no music, no anything, and just let your mind wander, and then try and get it to focus on your breathing, or in many cases on nothing. See if you can blank out your mind, not have thoughts. Now, thoughts will enter it, but you don't fight the thoughts. You just let them go and float away and try and come back to this feeling of centeredness and breathing and maybe a blankness. And you do this. Now, some people use a mantra like an or an or some one syllable, love. You can do, and often it's not a word or a meaning, so you can get a sound, make a sound, see what sound comes to you if you're just sitting there relaxed, and what kind of a sound would you make if you were relaxing your body. Just let that sound happen. It's a repetitive sound almost in your mind. You could do it through your voice, but it doesn't have to be. It can almost be like a mental sound. And you do that, and then you do this for a period of time. It's typically recommended at least 10 minutes, preferably 20. 10 to 20 minutes, you sit quietly and do that once or twice a day. Now, you're doing it, one, to reduce stress, because it automatically will. Second of all, you're doing it to learn a technique for calming down your body. And it puts you in this regenerative state. You're not sleeping, although sometimes if you haven't slept well, you might nod off doing this, and that's okay. It's not the intention. Usually it's to be kind of mentally alert and aware, but not on anything, right? You're not paying attention to anything other than your breathing. So let that go and let that just feel soft and comfortable. Now, what happens is you learn to do this anytime, anywhere. So you could do it out in a park. You could do it in your car, parked somewhere. You could do it. You could go to another room. You could do it in the bathroom. You could do it anywhere, and you can do it and get yourself into that place. And then here's the key, that you learn to trigger that relaxation response anytime with simply a thought or an image. So maybe it's an image of being on the beach, or maybe it's an image of being in that quiet place you normally do, or in a wooded glen. But you learn to have this mental trigger or technique that says, breathe, just breathe, and calm down, and relax, and focus. And as you talk like that to yourself, it happens. So what you've now learned to do is you can be in the most stressful situation. You can trigger that thought, and immediately your body calms down and you get out of that stressful thing. That's the power of the relaxation response. And that's the power of the skill of meditation. Now, the next thing is exercise. Of course, it's the other thing. It's instead of being inactive and quiet and quieting down, it's getting active. All research shows that moderate, we're not talking here about weightlifting or rigorous athletic activity or trying to do a faster mile or any, those things are all stressful, actually. I mean, the body builds its strength through them, so that's why athletes do them, but they're really stressful on your body. So we're not talking about that. We're talking moderate exercise, walking, softly climbing stairs, stretching, doing yoga, that kind of thing, movement, Tai Chi. There's lots of ways that people do physical activity, but walking is probably the fundamental one. And so when you're worried or stressed, the most important thing you can do is go for a quiet walk. Just go for a walk. The very walking will release that tension. It will put you in a rhythm, because walking has a rhythmic nature to it. You'll feel your breathing. You'll stretch, and do this for 20 or 30 minutes a day. You'll separate from your meditation, although I find walking and sometimes even just doing physical activity like that in a meditative state can be meditative, but I would separate them out. This is exercise. This is about getting your blood flowing, your heart rate up, your muscles working, your hormones flowing, all that stuff through your body. And you do that for, at least 20 minutes, because at less than 20, you don't get much benefit from it. 30, you get max benefit. You don't have to do more than that. Maybe do it once a day, maybe do it 4 or 5 times a week. So, but do it anytime you feel stressed. If you feel stressed, just say, I'm going for a walk. I'm going out. Now, it's best to do it in a peaceful, quiet, natural setting. Walking next to a highway can be stressful. Walking through a mall can be stressful. There's too many other things impinging on you. I mean, that may be good for morning exercise. Walking in the mall, a lot of people do it, but it really isn't the best place. Best place is a quiet, natural setting, alone. Now you can exercise with somebody. That's a different thing about doing exercise for weight loss or conditioning or something. But in terms of stress management, it's better to either be alone or not to talk, except to yourself. What's interesting is you breathe deeply, and if you have a conversation with yourself while you walk, you will be amazed at the wise and brilliant things that come to your mind. I can tell you how many times that's happened in my life, where I was out for a walk in the country or on a lane and through the woods, and I started talking, and it led me to an attitude of gratitude, and it led me to some creative ideas for my life and my business. So talking to yourself is okay while you walk, but if you engage in a conversation, and that's okay, it's social, but it won't really be necessarily stress releasing. So put regular, moderate exercise in, and learn to do it when you need to do it to reduce stress. Now, laughing is just a tension release. There's something about it that sends endorphins into the mind, into the brain. It sends other good chemicals through the rest of the body. It's just a great thing to do, and it lightens the load, because a lot of it, remember, stress begins with our thinking. So if our thinking can get light and more frivolous and silly and laughable, then we've taken the stress away from it. So the first thing is find humor in everything that happens in life. Just find humor. Just see, isn't that funny? I can't believe that. I can't believe they said such a stupid thing to me on the phone. You can make fun of them, but more importantly, number 2, make fun of your own goof-ups, of your own misunderstandings, of your own, stupid things you said or stupid things you thought or did, and have fun with them. And say, can you believe I did that? For me, it's having senior moments and, things that I goof up because I've just got too many things going at the same time or something. I mean, I've done that in the middle of a teaching session where I'm on a train of thought and I all of a sudden forget where I am. And I don't know where it's going or where it ends. And I've gone off the path, and it's like a bunny trail, and it's a dead end. And I have to just stop and say, I have no idea where I'm going with this. I mean, I can't believe it. Let's get back to the main track. And I make fun of myself. I think making fun of yourself and your own little, quirks and your own little goof-ups is good. Then look in your life for what tickles your funny bone, because everyone's funny bone is different. Some people like slapstick humor. Some people like mental humor. Some people like puns and, word games, and other people like, other people, pratfalls and things going wrong with other people. And then begin to collect that around you. I have a wonderful collection of books by Terry Pratchett, who's a wonderful and funny author, though. He makes me laugh when I read him. He's a place I go for that. And I love Dennis Miller. It's modern, and it's feisty, and it's a little sarcastic in humor, but it makes me laugh, and it's funny, and we laugh at ourselves. And so I would say collect together those things that make that make you laugh, and then take a comedy break. Go out, have a couple of YouTube things that break you up, that just break you up. George Carlin or somebody, or whoever is a comic, that you like, and just go know where their YouTubes are, and take a break and go have a comedy break, and laugh, and then if you have movies that are really, unusually humorous and funny, I'm trying to think the one with Bill Murray, Groundhog Day. and others that, and then go watch them occasionally, just to kind of be reminded. So the other thing is be serious selectively. It's okay to be serious. I mean, obviously everything isn't a game, and there are things that matter, and you have to have focus. But so be selectively serious. Be serious about your work, but not about yourself. Don't let your ego get involved so much, because that's where you start to feel the personal emotional stress. But yeah, take your work seriously. You know that. And then the final thing, and there's two parts of it, and it's train yourself. I mean, I believe you can train yourself to handle stress. I think it's like champion athletes, marathoners or Olympics or even military people. They put themselves under massive stress, but they learn how to tolerate it. They learn how to do it. They learn how to operate effectively under stress. They learn how to put the fear and the stress off to the side so that they're effective. I mean, I can't believe it. I almost can't watch Olympic skaters when they're skating for the gold medal. I almost can't watch them, because I know that for all the months and years of training they've done, all they have to do is miss one jump and fall down on the ice, and they're gone. They're history. They haven't got a chance at a medal. And talk about pressure. And they got all these people watching and all this expectation that they have. But there's something about top athletes and top performers who are willing to put themselves in what for anyone else would be a massively stressful situation, an 8-foot putt to win or lose the tournament, a free throw to win or lose the basketball game, an at-bat with the bases loaded to either win for your team or lose. And yet these athletes put themselves in those stressful situations, and they calm their fear and stress. They don't focus on the negative outcomes. They focus on the positive outcomes, and they succeed. That's a mental strength. That's learning how to do this mentally. Handling stress, remember this, is a skill. It's not an either or. It's not like, he automatically handles stress. No, everyone builds it. You can build it as a skill. You can take on more demanding things and handle them with aplomb and confidence and ease, and put the fear to the side. There's a wonderful book by Susan Jeffers called Feel the Fear, and it's all about how you handle fear, typically by going through it. We always said in the books I wrote that money lies on the other side of fear, and I would say success lies on the other side of fear. And once you get through the fear, you actually look back and you say, what was I afraid of? I even say, let fear be your compass. When you're afraid to do something, it means you were meant to do it because you care about the outcome. That's why you're afraid. You care that it won't work out the way you wanted it to. So if something looks fearful to you, it was probably you were meant to do it. Now, part of this is there's another technique, just like in the technique with meditation. This one's called systematic stress desensitization. And that's where you put yourself in to ever more stressful situations. That's how they help people overcome phobias, like phobias of flying. First, they'll put them in a chair and they'll have them imagine themselves being on an airplane. Then they'll show a video of them being on an airplane. Then they'll walk and go on an airplane, but it won't fly. Then they'll talk and then they'll go up and maybe do a short little ride on an airplane and come back down, and then they'll go on an airplane. I use that. It means to step by step put yourself into ever more stressful situations that you currently are afraid of, rather than trying to jump the whole way, right? Like I'm afraid to swim and somebody throws me in the pool. I mean, that's a stupid thing. But people do it, because it's going to nearly make me drown. Now I'm really going to be afraid. So find a way to step by step. I'll tell you, I experienced this being an instructor in the Dale Carnegie course, because people would come in to the first session and they would be deathly afraid of getting up and speaking in front of people. Deathly. I mean, almost to the point of they wanted to throw up or they wanted to leave the room. We had to help them get up there and just lean on the table and hold on to it and tell us their name and where they were from. I mean, basically, that's it. But here's the thing. At the end of 12 weeks, I could give them a topic from the back of the room, and they'd do a 2-minute talk on that topic. I would give them a silly skit to do, and they would do this silly skit in front of everyone. And they would love doing it. Why? Because every week for 12 weeks, we step by step put them into more demanding speaking opportunities, and they learned they could do it. They didn't die. They didn't make a fool of themselves. They actually enjoyed doing it, and by the end of it, their confidence level had built massively. So find in anything you're afraid of doing, find a way to step by step bring your way into it. That's why we practice sales presentations in what we call role playing. We do it to a mirror, then we do it to another person who is comfortable and we care about it, and then we do it in a situation where they're more demanding with us, and then finally we get and really do a sales presentation in front of a real customer. But we do it step by step. So systematic stress desensitization is a great way to train yourself. Keep track of your progress and reward your improvement. That's important to do, not to be a perfectionist, not to always critique yourself, but rather focus on what you're getting better at, what you're willing to do, and any improvements that you do. That's how you reward yourself. And now part 2 is really working on how you think, what you expect and how you adapt. What you want to do is become a tough-minded optimist. And that just simply means that you expect the best and you're going for it, but you're prepared for the worst. It's being a black-hatted optimist. It's knowing that anything is possible, but everything can go wrong. Murphy's laws, what can go wrong will, right? So in a sense, you're being realistic, but you're an optimistic realist. You are going to make things happen. You know they can. You're not afraid of it, but you know that things can go wrong, and you need to be prepared to handle those. That's it. And then I would say follow what I call the A train. The A's are the angels. First is awareness. Be aware of your own emotions and your reactions. Be very honest with yourself. Accept yourself for who you are right now with the feelings you have and maybe even the ineptness you have and the stress that you feel. Affirm that your uniqueness and your value as a human being. Then take step-by-step action to encounter and overcome those fears. And then as you do that, feel the actualization as you become truly the person, the strong, tough-minded, resilient, at ease, confident person that you want to be. And for the toughest things, I'm just going to say this, sometimes there are things we can't figure out. We have emotional reactions and fears. We don't know where they came from. They don't make sense to have. No matter all the mental gymnastics we try and do, all the meditation exercise, that fear won't go away. Get yourself a coach, a life coach or a therapist. Find somebody who's a trusted professional. I've done that many, many times in my life. And those therapists, those psychologists, those professional coaches have helped me get my mind right to discover where that wrong feeling was coming from and to erase it and then move on more healthily with my life. So I'm a deep believer in therapy for normals. I mean, you don't have to be mentally ill to get therapy. You in fact, it's the way I view it as a mental coach. Many people have life coaches now. But it's a great way to get better and better at handling what you want to handle. So the final thing to remember is commit to this as a process of self-mastery. Build from your strengths and bridge your weaknesses. Don't try and overcome your weaknesses. Remember that constant improvement beats delayed perfection. Don't be a perfectionist on yourself. And count your blessings. Some closing thoughts on this whole topic. Achievers, remember this, and entrepreneurs learn to handle more stress than other people. They do. And their lives are happier, by the way, which is interesting. They're happier because they're bigger and they're more confident. There's a formula for dealing with stress. We call it the M.E.L.T or the M.E.L.T formula, melt it away, and that's meditate, learn to relax. It's a skill. Exercise, release the tension, do it consistently. Laugh. Life really is a funny game. It's a funny game. Enjoy the humor of it. And then train, build your mental strength. You do all of that, you will not only melt away your stress, you will live a life of stress-filled, I mean, what would be for others, you're willing to take it on, of stress-filled happiness. I just say, go for it.